I want to spend some time talking about creativity today. And this podcast was largely inspired by a conversation I was having with one of my mentees. And I was answering some of his questions on his creative process. And as I answered the questions, I really felt it would be important for me to share some of these thoughts with you. So I want to talk about 5 things that creative people ought to know that I believe they don't know. And I believe as a creative, you need to know these 5 things, or else your mentality about creativity will be very skewed. And I really hope at the end of this podcast, somebody on the creative path would be able to have a more pleasurable experience about being a creative. Because I realize there's some misconceptions, misinformation, hidden information that people have or do not have about creativity and what it means. So, if you are a creative in any way, you're a writer, you're a photographer, you're a designer, you're a programmer, you're an engineer, an architect, I want you to take some time to listen to this. You might even be a songwriter in entertainment. I want you to take some time to listen to this because I believe these 5 things would help you to get clarity um, as it regards creativity. The first thing I want to talk about is nature as a boost to creativity. Nature boosts creativity. I don't think this is something that gets said enough. The play and the role that nature plays in creativity. I don't think it gets said enough, and I don't think it gets hammered enough. That nature is the battery to creativity. A lot of people feel creativity is rooted in technology. So let's say a lot of creative people spend more time with technology than they do with nature. But there is hardly any technology out there that wasn't influenced by nature. So the key people that are at the forefront of technological innovations are people that are very close to nature. But we don't get to see this because a lot of times when we see them and hear from them, a lot of times they don't tell us about their routine and how they are um, advocates of an intimacy with nature. So I see a lot of young creatives spend a lot of time on their system, on apps, on their laptops, you understand? So we think creativity is about gadgets. Creativity is about technology, it's about plugging something in. No, no, no. Creativity starts with nature. The closer you are to nature, the more creative ideas you would have. So I love reading books um, that chronicles the lives of founders. And two very interesting books I've read is one called Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. And the second one is Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. Steve Jobs was one of the founders of Apple. An interesting thing about both books is how both of them, before they started these companies, took time away to travel, to go into nature, travel away from the United States. Steve Jobs traveled to India. Phil Knight traveled to a lot of countries and they went to Asia a lot. And they spent a lot of time not in fancy hotels but in nature. And Phil Knight spent about a year plus. Steve Jobs spent about 7 months in India, just trying to get away from the noise of technology and getting to this place of being one with nature. And a lot of them, both of them, refer to this period in their life as very instrumental to jump starting their creativity. Um, and I realize this works for me too as well as a person, where I go out when I'm feeling creatively stuck and I just take a walk. I realize that by the time I come back, I feel some inspiration. I feel um I feel an infilling, a spiritual infilling. I can't explain it. And things get clearer. If I'm working on a logo project or working on a design project, anytime I take even as little as a drive, just a drive out, just feeling that wind in my face, just breathing in that fresh air does a lot to recalibrate us as human beings. Very important that you take out time to go out. You understand? Just go outside of your house, outside of your office, spend time on the terrace of your office building, to go for walks. If you have a garden, spend time in a garden. Just not fiddling with your phone, but just allowing yourself to soak in the ultimate technology called nature. And you see how this will largely inspire your creativity. It will. Nature is an incredible battery for us as human beings. The more you can connect to nature, the more your knowledge base as a human being would grow. A lot of people eulogize books, and books are good, but books don't hold a candle to our connection with nature. You understand? When you spend time studying nature and just really seeing nature, I believe a lot of us spend just take a glance. You understand? We take a glance at things, but we don't see things. We don't see the design of things, the design of trees, the texture, the textures around us, the texture of stones, the smells. When you spend time in nature and you smell, you can observe, you can feel, you come alive as a person. So nature is an incredible boost for creativity, and I believe that a lot of creatives need to harness this this incredible gift of nature that we have all around us. It's free. It's free. And take time out every single day to spend time in nature, and you'll see how that will massively boost your creativity. The second thing I want to talk about that I feel a lot of creatives do not get to hear about a lot, and it's kind of hampering their creativity, is um, the need for positive reinforcement. The need for positive reinforcement and praise and positive reinforcement. It's so important. Validation, the role that validation plays in creativity, I think is highly underrated. Validation is so important. People telling you how good your work is at whatever level. A lot of people feel like I need to get to a particular level before people can see any good in my work. I don't think so. I think from the first day of setting out to do something at every stage, even while it's still in process, to be able to find somebody or a team of people that can see what's good about it and what could be good about it is very important. People that can see the potential even at the seed level of your creation. It's so important. I can't tell you how much of a boost this has been for me as a creative. You know, when I used to work as a core logo designer, then just I remember working on a logo once and just choosing the typeface, and I just chosen this typeface and just typed out the name of the brand. And I remember my wife walked into the room, and this was like how many steps into the look, just choosing the typeface, still black, nothing more than that. And my wife just walked into the room and she wanted to get something out of the room. And on her way out, she glanced at my system and she said, "Wow, looking good already." That just gave me that just gave me wings. Wow, looking good already. That was enough to just get me to just pour in myself into that, because sometimes as a creative you're working and you're having to deal with self-doubt. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it good? Is it good? And someone just telling you, I see what you're doing. I think there've been two instances like that, and it has always been my wife to tell me how good it has been. I remember working on a logo for a company then called Click It. And I remember I was working for hours and just trying to fine tune this logo. And I remember my wife just coming to visit me at work, and she sat down and looked at it, and she said, "Let me have a look at what you've been doing." And I was so discouraged by then, so disillusioned, so many hours working, and um, she said, "Let me look at it." And she looked at it and said, "Wow, this is really good." And because I spent so much time looking at it, I'd I'd began to lose some focus, and my perception was skewed. And that's why you need people like you, people around you with good energy, positive energy, good vibes. And then she just said, this is really good. This is really good. I like it. What don't you like about it?" And immediately that just recalibrated my view of it. And I was like, "Really?" Say, "Yeah, what don't you like? I like the colors, I like the concept and stuff." And before I knew it, she had poured in some positivity, and I just got back to work again on it because I was already getting disillusioned. And I created the logo, and it was one of those logos that really, really, till today I really, really love. You understand? The client loved it, and I was like, "How come I didn't like it while I was creating it?" And all it just took for my eyes to be open to the potential was just validation. Validation. So important for us to have people who can give us positive validation. Sometimes when you have that validation, it's just what you need to take your creativity all the way. Do you understand? So a lot of times we feel we are stuck, but we are not particularly stuck. All we just need is just a word of validation from the right people. And so it discourages me a lot where I see creative platforms or creative communities where there's a lot of toxic feedback, a lot of harsh words, and it's for me it's very disturbing, where I feel like people need to be toxic to ginger people to be more creative. You understand? Very, very hard breaking words that people use in their bid to critique, or in their bid to teach, or in their bid to motivate. um, I think we shouldn't be I think flattery is one thing, but taking our time to really look at work and see what's good about it is very, very important. Flattery, I wouldn't encourage. If you don't see anything good, then there isn't something good to say. But then, if you can take your time to really look at something and surround yourself with people that can look at your work and motivate you, and sometimes they might look at what you are doing and they tell you, okay, this is not good enough. But then they go on to tell you who you are and say, "Man, I know you'll get it. I know you'll get it. I know it will come through because it's you." You understand? People that can tell you it's you. I trust you. I trust your creativity, and it's you. So there's sometimes I work on stuff and I'm like, "Man, I'm not just getting it." And again, my wife tells me, "It's you now. It's you. You get it. I know you get it in the long run. It's not you. You're the logo king." You understand? That's positive reinforcement. And that just reminds me of the skill of creativity that I have on my inside. And so positive reinforcement and validation is something we all need. We need it a lot. We need it a lot. As I read this Steve Jobs book, I I realized how much positive reinforcement he got from his parents. You understand? And as I said too, I watched a documentary on Kanye West, and it was amazing how much positive reinforcement he got from his mother. So his mother was a very strong force in his life, and I believe he still hears her voice. You understand? So whatever he does, he has this additional boost of validation within him. So positive reinforcement, important, very important. And that means you need to have people around you. So isolation is not very good for you as a creative, because you are going to run down on energy, and you need people who can pull you up in your time of disillusionment and discouragement. Um, the third thing about creativity that I believe is not being said enough is how hard it is, and how difficult a road it can be, and how many obstacles you're going to meet on this your creative journey. So a lot of people feel creativity is a math. It's like 1 plus 1, 2, 2 plus 2, 4. You understand? No, it's not that direct. I only wish it were, but it isn't. It is a very brain racking thing to be creative. It's a very long, woundy road, and I've said this in some of my podcasts before. It's not a straight line. It takes time, and you're going to meet obstacles, and that in itself, the getting stuck is the creative process. The getting stuck is the creative process. When it begins to flow and get easy, creativity has probably ended. So the flow and the ease of doing or creating a lot of times is the last end of the creative process, not the beginning. It's the last. It means that you are reaching the end of that creative process. You've reached the end when it begins to flow. um we must realize that a good deal of the creative process is hard, is dragging, is full of obstacles. There's delay. um it's hard. It's a hard road. It's not a day's job. It really isn't. um so like I was talking to my mentee, he expressed this. He says when he's getting stuck when designing, he feels like a fraud. And I know a lot of people that feel that way. I feel that way. I used to feel that way too when I'm designing and it's taking a day, 2 days, 3 days to solve a design problem. I'm like, am I really meant for this? Do I really know how to do this thing? I should have solved this thing by now. And that's a wrong mentality. That mentality comes from thinking that creativity is easy, but it actually isn't. It really isn't easy. It's a long, windy obstacle course. It takes a lot of time. It does. And so embrace getting stuck. You understand? Once you start getting stuck, just embrace it. You understand? Um, know that you are en route. You are en route to that destination called or you're on that path of creativity. You are there. It's just like, I remember traveling to the United Arab Emirates some years ago. And, my mother told me before I took that trip that, oh, you get to a place where you fly over the desert, and it's always very turbulent. And so don't be surprised. So when we got to that part where we were flying over the African desert, it got turbulent. And, at that point, I wasn't scared, because it just made me know that, okay, we're on the right path. You understand? Because my mother told me it's going to get turbulent. So that turbulence is evidence that you are on your way to Dubai. And that happened. There was turbulence. And I want someone who's creative listening to this to know that when you're doing anything that is really creative, there will be some turbulence. There will be moments of getting stuck. It's never easy, never ever easy. As I said, I would recommend this book to any creative out there. Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. If you're a designer, a software engineer, animator, whatever, Please read that book. It's an incredible book, and it tells you a lot about the creative process and what it takes for you to create something. So a lot of times we see the iPhone, we see the iMac, we see all these amazing things from Apple, but we kind of think they just go into one of their rooms and within a day they've come out with no. These things take years of iteration, years of back and forth, years of getting stuck. um it's incredibly hard, and I say this because a lot of time we see the finished product, and so we don't appreciate the process. So we think when we get on that road to a product too, the process should be short. And so when it's taking a year, 2 years to come out with a product, you already think you are failing, but you're not failing, you know. So you should stop doubting yourself because you are getting stuck. I think getting stuck and having obstacles is part of the creative process. It means you are on the right path. You understand? Getting stuck for a day is a blessing. A lot of times when you're on to something really creative, you can get stuck for days, for weeks, some people for months. These things store. um so the creative process is one that takes incredible amount of time because it's very hard and full of obstacles. So the fourth thing I want to talk about here that I feel creatives do not really know about is creativity is 1% originality and 99% inspiration. And I'm going to explain what that means. When people think of creativity, they think of new ideas. But creativity, the soul of creativity is not in new ideas. I think newness, we confuse creativity for an act of creating something never seen before. That's a very small part of creativity. Newness, novelty. No, it's a very small part of creativity. Creativity is 1% originality, 1% what you've never seen before, and 99% inspiration, something you've seen before. You understand? And what I mean is, in being creative, we need to embrace the concept of copying. Copying is not a negative word, and I think school has done a lot to destroy this word in our minds. School and capitalism. You understand? So school tells you do not copy each other. You understand? So they separate us during exams. So we say, oh, this copying thing must be a very terrible vice. And capitalism also, because companies want to sell products and don't want competition. So like, don't copy us. If you copy us, we will sue you. But I do not think that this fosters the spirit of creativity. The art of copying is so important. So important. Copying is so important. And that's what I call inspiration and influence. Creativity is 1% originality, 99% inspiration and influence. I remember watching this video, this YouTube short, and it was Quentin Tarantino, the film director, and he was talking about his influences, and he mentioned someone as his biggest influence. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Trying to remember his name. He mentioned, yeah, his name is Sergio Leone. He mentioned Sergio Leone as his biggest influence. And when I watched that video, he showed shots from Sergio Leone and shots from his own movies, and you can see how some shots are just duplicates of Leone's shots. Duplicates. Nothing changes. The only thing that changed is the actor, and maybe they are wearing different clothes, but the concept of the shot is the same thing. These movies, some of them are 20, 30 years apart, but then the shot, you can see that it was highly inspired by Leone. Highly inspired. The originality is just very little. Very little. 1% is different. But that 1% is the Tarantino. That 1% is that Tarantino brand. And so sometimes I see creatives wanting to be 100% genuine. And what I mean is 100% original. That's so hard. I don't think anybody can be 100% original. That position is reserved for God. That's what makes God so impressive. God so amazing. Because God has no point of reference. But we as human beings need a point of reference. We need this so much. So creativity is 99% inspiration and influence, 1% originality. 1% originality. And that originality is when that influence reaches the brim. That means you are so influenced and so inspired that 1% is just that spill of you being so inspired by somebody. So when I started out as a designer, I was highly influenced by some companies like Too Advanced. And I would try to copy their work, as in copy their work. But then there was always a 1% that would make me adjust it for the client, adjust it for the Nigerian market. You understand? Adjust it for black people. You understand? But for me, that adjustment was the 1% adjustment that made it creatively mine. You understand? So originality is something we fuss about so much. I see so many people saying, don't copy. Oh, you copy this person's work. Oh, this no. Everybody copies. Everybody copies. We were made to copy. But you know one thing is, as you copy, your 1%, 1% of your DNA is enough to change people's perception of what you copied. 1%. But to be 99% inspired and influenced. We are always influenced. Always. When you listen to music, you realize that a lot of producers go and look for old records and listen to old records, and they take it and they go and listen to it for days, and then they copy some of the beats and just add just a little bit to it, to make it theirs. Just a little bit. We were made to copy. We call it copying, but I call it being influenced and being inspired. It doesn't make you any less a creative. It doesn't make you any less a creative. Everybody copies. The initial person copied from nature, you understand? And it just went all downhill, in quote, from there. But that's the process. Nobody owns any idea originally 100%. Nobody owns any idea 100%. So it's okay to look at something and say, you know what, this would form the foundation of what we are going to build. This will form the foundation. This is going to inspire the structure of what we are going to build. That's fine. And creative people need to know that enough. Hear that more, that is fine. It's fine to be inspired and to be influenced by something. We need to stop this culture of calling out unnecessarily. I don't see what the big deal is in it's not 100% your idea. Yes, there's nothing in this world that is 100% a person's idea. It's not. As long as you can see that 1% that makes it, that's part of them, that is their DNA, then I think that's absolutely fine. The last thing I want to talk about here, as regards being creative and as regards creativity that people do not hear about a lot, is money. And the part money plays is in the creative's life and in the creative process. I think it's very important for us to be cautious about money. And I think what I want to say here is that nobody can pay you to be creative. It's impossible. Nobody pays anyone to be creative. Creativity can never be a job. Not a job. You understand? Creativity is not a job. Nobody can pay you to be creative. Nobody. They can pay for a product that comes out of creativity, but nobody can pay you to be creative. Creativity is a way of life. It's like someone paying you to breathe. Nobody should pay you to breathe. When people start paying you to breathe, you're as good as dead. So you are a creative by nature, by the way you see the world. People can pay for the end product of your creativity, but be very careful when people try to pay you to be creative. That's when people start to lose it. And what I mean is, I have people say, oh man, I'm not doing anything creative because I don't have any clients. It means you're not truly creative, because you create every single time. You're in creative mode every single time. Every single time. I started designing before I had any clients. People that sing and write songs started singing in their bathroom before anybody decided to sign them to a record label. People that write books have been coming up with stories in their head, you understand, before they got any book deals. Photographers photograph before they have gigs. The true ones do. Only the fake ones wait for clients, wait for exchange of money to engage in creativity, in creative activity. Creativity is a way of life. It's not something people pay you to engage in. It's something you do that starts a process for which people can now say, I like the product of this. How much does it cost? Does the product cost? But the process is free. The process is you. You see, when I used to work as a designer, I just used to design. You understand? I just used to design. Every day, wake up, get to the computer, design. Every day, go out, see something, inspire me, go to the computer, design. Every day, have a conversation that inspired me, go to computer, design. Every day, see someone wearing something, I like those colors, go to computer, design. And I just used to have a folder full of design. And then I started having clients who used to pay me for a product. So they wanted a flyer, a brochure, or a web design, logo, or stuff like that. And I realized that because I was working with the client who gave me very, very little time to go on that, to fully go on that creative journey, you understand? What I used to do was I would go back to my folders of work that I did as a free creative, not as a commissioned one. And I will go back to those things that I did just for fun. And I'll start looking through them and start saying, which idea can I use for this client, for this product? You understand? Until today, I still do it. I still go back to those very old ideas, the ideas that I did freely, the ideas that were not triggered by money. I still go back to them because those were the true creative ideas. Those were true creative. And I said, okay, this is good. Okay, I think I'll use some of this. So you see, I went back to that same point of that my inspiration became my old work. So I'll just go and just say, I like this. I like what I did here. Okay, I'm not going to change the color from red to green. And I give the client, oh, here's your flyer. Here's your brochure. And they're thinking, oh, that's so cool. You created this in very little time. I said, no, it didn't take me 1 day to create it. I don't tell them that, but I think it's in my mind. I'm like, it didn't take me 1 day to create it. This concept you're looking at, I created it about 5 years ago. And then it took me about 2 weeks to create it. I just tweaked it a bit and gave it to you. That's the truth. A lot of creativity is an idea you had before a client came calling. So you see photographers too, they're like, someone came to my studio to take a photo. And they're like, how do you come up with all these incredible poses and stuff like that and incredible angles? You must be really creative. They think the photographer is thinking of it in the now. They don't understand that pose has been in his head for the past 3 years. Do you understand? In 3 years, he was playing with that pose, that angle when he had nothing to do. It took him like 2 weeks to come up with those angles. But then when the client comes to pay, he's not paying for the creativity. He's paying for the product. The creativity, you can't pay for it. You can't pay for it. You can't pay for it. It's part and parcel. It's like buying the human soul. You can't. You can't. You can't. The thought came way before the product. The thought came as a spiritual inspiration. It took some time. It took some time. So as a creative, I want to advise you not to let money be your motivation, because creativity is not something that is triggered by money. Creativity is something that is triggered by the soul. It's triggered by the soul. It's a soul feeling. It comes at a time when the client is not available. You understand? It comes at an odd time and takes as long as it wants to take. But one thing I would advise you to do is to document. The more you document and you archive, when a client comes, you just go into your archive, your store of creative cachet, and just take from there, tweak it a bit, give it to the client. That's how you can deliver work fast as a creative, if you want to be a creative for hire. But nobody can hire you to begin a creative process. What you can do is, once it starts in your mind without a client, document it and save it somewhere for a client. I see a lot of music producers, that's the way they work. They have beats in their head, not because they are working with an artist. They just have beats in their head. They go to the studio, record the beats, put it there. And sometimes an artist will come in and say, what beats do you have? And the producer will give them some tapes. Go and listen to this. They didn't create it because of the artist. They created it because the creative spirit just took over them about 5 years ago, and then they're giving you, go and listen to it. Those are the things I think people ought to know about creativity that people do not know. Some things that they are misinformed about or they have no information about. So I'll go over those 5 things again. Number 1, nature boosts creativity. Number 2, always seek positive reinforcement. Surround yourself with people that validate you, not people that tear you down. Creativity is a hard, windy road full of obstacles. Creativity is 1% originality, 99% inspiration, and be careful of money. You can never pay for creativity. Creativity is spiritual, is natural, and you need to archive it and document it as much as possible. My name is Tola T.A. Alabi, and you'll be listening to my podcast, ProUp Masterclass.